What's wavy? It's your boy MoonVibes, and you tune in to another episode of Fantasy Vibes Live, Week 12 edition. Today is the live version. We have November the 21st. We're getting closer and closer to Thanksgiving. It is Thanksgiving week. Hopefully, you eat some good grub, you eat good, and have a wonderful Thanksgiving holidays. But we're here, like always, to give you fantasy from a different perspective. You know, because where you sit determines what you see, and what you see determines your outlook on the situation. That's here what we focus on in Fantasy Vibes. We're here to mix analytics with film review. We're here to mix what we see with our eyes, with what we feel, and just what we think in our minds as well with the analytics. And this is what helps us give the best process to give fantasy vibes to the people. We're new and revamped. It's been a long time since I got a chance to see you, but this would not be possible without Real Ones Productions. So shout out to Real Ones Productions for sponsoring this episode of Fantasy Vibes and every episode of Fantasy Vibes that we give to you, the public. You can check us out at realonesproductions.com. That's realonesproductions.com for your latest in pro, college, and fantasy sports news. Today's show is going to be a jam-packed one, to say the least. We got Ride This Wave, where I'm going to be giving y'all the early waiver wire pickups that you need to be targeting in all of your leagues. Have some quarterback, some running backs, some wide receivers, and a tight end that I really, really love. That is coming up for you. Also, we're going to go around the NFL and give you all the latest news that you need to know for November the 21st, Monday after. We're actually going to do a little quick preview of the Monday night game between Arizona and San Francisco later on in the show. We also have Moon's Mailbag, where I'm going to go to Twitter and I'm going to be answering some questions from the people out there in the community to help you build your lineups and help you answer some of the hard-pressing questions that we have after this crazy Week 11 that we had. And then also, we got the injury report. We'll be talking a little bit about that in the Around the NFL segment. But you already know the vibes. None of this will be able to get started without my favorite segment. The segment that lets me know that, hey, Moon, you back. You back and you better. I'm talking about the main enchilada. I'm talking about the big daddy of them all. Not the granddaddy, Moon, but the big daddy of them all. Got to give respect to the Rose Bowl, even though DTR had to look at the Rose Bowl for the last time last night. It is time for Real Talk, presented by Real Ones Productions, and this would not be possible without Real Ones Productions. Make sure you check it out and stay tuned for Real Talk. Real Talk, say it with my chest and emphatically. I've been telling y'all throughout this time, I started off in the off season, and this is not anything new. I've been trying to let y'all know because I wanted y'all to understand that there is a reality where Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard can both be effective and have their best seasons to date. They said, well, how is that going to happen, Moon? Well, obviously it's going to have to be one or the other. Jerry is paying one guy and he really needs to be paying the other one. I hear a lot of polls and I see a lot of polls. I hear the pulse of what's going on around the NFL world, specifically with the Cowboys Nation. And what Cowboys Nation has been drinking the Kool-Aid of is Tony Pollard. Because why? He's explosive. It seems like every time he breaks a big run like you see there, it's going to go to the crib, to the apartments. Whatever you use as a touchdown, that's where we're going to be meeting at. However, the one thing that I wasn't prepared for was that this season was going to lead the Cowboys being in the thick of things in the playoff race. So therefore, needing more production from the running back. So you have Tony Pollard inserted into the equation. You have Ezekiel Elliott inserted into the equation. Y'all know me. My biggest thing that I've said from the beginning was this all comes down to Kellen Moore. How does Kellen Moore be able to utilize both of their strengths and their skill sets and be able to get the most out of it for not only fantasy productions, but in real life to actually come and constitute wins. This is what we needed to know. Now, I am one to believe that there's a world that exists that Tony Pollard could be busy this year and Ezekiel Elliott could be busy this year. I personally think that Ezekiel Elliott is my guy. He's been my guy. We talked about him last year, but I don't have to go down the list of reasons why Zeke is my guy. But what I will tell you is that Tony Pollard looks very, very impressive, bro. Very impressive. And the fact that we are now in a situation where the Dallas Cowboys, after that dominant win that they had yesterday, are basically in the driver's seat of the NFC East. So that leaves me. Well, what is you going to say now, Moon? What are you going to say now? You saw Tony Pollard. Well, did you see Ezekiel Elliott too? Because both of them was basically having a block party in the end zone. Now you see the explosiveness and the big play ability that Tony Pollard has right there as we speak. Nobody's taking that away from him. But I said, and my real talk starts off with this, that there is a world that exists with Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott both having great seasons for the Dallas Cowboys in order for them to reach their goals that they have of not only making it to the playoffs, not only making it to hopefully the NFC Championship, but being Super Bowl bound in this situation. What I like to see is more. It's like that Kobe Bryant Kanye commercial. And he's asking him all the questions. He's just like, more. That's what I need to see from both parties involved. But when we look at this in the grand scheme of things, a lot of people are going to look at the score for the Cowboys and Vikings game and look at it and be like, oh, man, I predicted that. No, you did not, bro. No, you did not. You did not predict that. There's no way. There's no way. There's like literally no way you could have. So what I will say for the people that's out there that have to roster Tony Pollard or roster Ezekiel Elliott is this. And what I've been saying before. You need to get used to this whole 1-2 punch thing that they have going on. To me, it doesn't really matter about who's starting because we saw Zeke get goal line touches and they had a 10-play, 75-yard drive that got capped off by a 1-yard touchdown run from Ezekiel Elliott. You talk about Tony Pollard. He scored one of his 2 touchdowns, making it 20-3, and then he broke away later on in the game. So there is a world that exists where the Dallas Cowboys offense is just as explosive all across the board. We talk about Dak. Dak went 22 of 25, quiet, 276 with 2 touchdowns. But at this point, they had to play Cooper Rush because the game was so out of hands. Tony Pollard, 15 for 80, 6 targets, 6 receptions, 109 yards, 2 touchdowns. So notice that his 2 touchdowns came through the passing game. Ezekiel Elliott, 15 carries, 42 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 target, 1 reception. So y'all can debate over, how the usage and all that is going to shake out, how one is being utilized more in the passing game versus the other one being utilized more as a goal line back. You can talk about upside and say, well, Zeke is maybe like a RB3 flex consideration. You can say Tony Pollard's like RB2 pushing that. By the end of the day, this is the world that we created where Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott were going to be relevant in fantasy. This season is happening now as we speak. So real talk, say with my chest, I just wanted to come back and let y'all know that like all this Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott talk, the question wasn't one or the other. The question has always been, how can you utilize them to the best of their ability so that both can flourish and both can shine? So it wasn't you have to pick option A or option B. It was, why not both of them? we live in an overflow, right? And Cowboys seem to be living in an overflow because they just kept putting points up, points up, points up. So real talk, say with my chest, it is not a Tony Pollard or Ezekiel Elliott. It is Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. That's what makes the Cowboys go. And if their defense keeps playing like this, then it's gonna be sky's the limit for them. And then the way their team is playing. That's Real Talk, presented by Real Ones Productions. Thank you as well to the R1P and y'all allow me to do this show. Special shout out to everybody that's watching, whether you're on Twitter, Twitch, wherever you are. We want to show you love, appreciation, and get to some of the content that we got. Don't think that I forgot about y'all for a second, man. I got y'all covered. It's been a lot going on in my life, to say the least. My last episode was like in September, and over the course of September, October, now we in the back end of November. Like, there's been a lot of things going on, but I'm still here. We're still wavy, still making it happen, and we're still gonna be giving you this content. I want to give a special shout out. If you want to check out my website, where you can find out more on what I have going on with MoonVibes, just type in your search bar solo.to/MoonVibes. That's SOLO.to/MoonVibes. All spelled out like my name is. And you can check out my website. You can find out what's going on with me and my friends. And again, this is sponsored by Real Ones Productions. Yes, sir. It honestly feels so good to be in a situation where I'm back streaming, recording for y'all. If you love the podcast, make sure you hit us with that 5-star review. It's greatly appreciated. And also share it with a friend. Tell somebody about what's going on with Fantasy Vibes. And know that Fantasy Vibes is expanding to Fantasy Vibes Hoops very, very soon. Video podcast for you. Similar to what we got going on in our setup right here. Let's get into it. We still got a lot of things to cover and only a short period of time to do so. But we're going to make it wavy. But since I got it, and I got all of that out of my system and out of the way, it's time for a fan favorite. Let's get into it. Ride this way. Players that you need to be rostering in your leagues. And if you're not rostering them, you're going to have to ask yourself that question. You're going to have to ask yourself that question. Why is he not on my squad? And do I actually want to win? I'm going to get to some players that you need to check out. And if they're in your leagues, pick them up expeditiously. But before we do, make sure you check out Real Ones Productions at realonesproductions.com. Shameless plug. Coming up on this special edition of Ride This Way. Not about to talk about Tony Pollard, because Tony Pollard and Zeke is already on Ride This Wave. They shouldn't even be on your waiver wire at all. If they are on your waiver wire, then your league must be like a 6-team league. It must be a 4-team league. But even still, it doesn't make no sense why they should be on your waiver wire. So that is not the topic of my conversation. But players that you need to be rostering expeditiously, like immediately, are as follows. But before we do this, it's going to be some head scratchers. It's going to be some ones that's like, why you got him on there, Moon? There's going to be some ones that, that makes perfect sense, Moon. There's going to be some ones that's like, dang, bruh, I didn't even see that coming. Well, let's get into it. And this Ride This Wave is brought to you by the letter L. Because if your team took an L this week, hey, I'm praying for you. Coming up first, Mr. Samaje. They said this man's name is Samaj. It says this man's name is Samaj. He caught the touchdown bug, whatever Joe Mixon had going on a couple of weeks back, where he had 5 touchdowns against the Carolina Panthers. Well, it looks like Samaje Perine locker was close to Joe Mixon, and whatever they had going on, they passed him off the little bug, the touchdown bug. So now he came off in that cold weather. Samaje Perine got busy. We didn't think that he was going to turn out to be the lead back yesterday, but given the situation, it was what happened. I mean, when we looked at Joe Mixon in that Carolina game with Samaje, he was basically a non-factor. Like, Joe Mixon got all of the love, all the shine in that touchdown performance. But on this time, on this day, this Sunday, November the 20th, Joe Mixon actually got tackled, and it looked like a routine tackle, but then it led to him leaving the game with a concussion that we have to monitor and manage. And then entered in Samaje Perine, who let that touchdown bug get in his system, and it was like he almost transformed right before our eyes to do his best Joe Mixon impersonation, because this man went absolutely cuckoo. He went 11 times for 30 yards. Yeah, that's cool and all that. But where he really hurt the Steelers was being a receiver out of the backfield, where he caught 4 catches for 52 yards. And how many touchdowns? 3. This man had 3 touchdowns through the air. That means that it's 2 straight games where a Cincinnati running back finished top 2 at the position. It would have been Perine, and then the week before the bye was Joe Mixon against Carolina. Now, I know that there is a tough matchup on the horizon with the Tennessee Titans next, but if this whole running back by committee situation applies to the Cincinnati Bengals, and this next man up with Joe Mixon being in concussion protocol, and somehow, some way he cannot go, then I think that Perine can enter into RB2 conversations for the week that is leading up to the fantasy football playoffs. This is important. Very, very important for you. If Joe Mixon is not cleared, insert Samaje Perine with confidence, because we saw what he did with the workload. Samaje Perine, somebody that you need to ride this wave. Coming up next. Man. Mr. Mike Williams left the contest last night. He re-injured his ankle after 1 catch, and everybody got disappointed. Why? Because we want him to play. He's been out for a couple of weeks now. We're excited to see the talent that is Mike Williams, especially with a strong arm quarterback that just handsome guy, by the way. Justin Herbert was slinging that thing yesterday. But the passes were not going to Mike Williams. Nah, it was actually going to Keenan Allen. Keenan Allen was getting some targets, but the guy that you see right there, Mr. Josh Palmer, is exactly who you need to be picking up on your waiver wire this week, and why you need to ride this wave. Because both Mike Williams and Keenan Allen have now returned from leg injuries, only to immediately re-aggravate both of them. Now, I think this is just a combination of just bad luck, because I didn't expect Keenan Allen to be out for this amount of time with just a hamstring. Now, he did come back and he did look good in his return, but the news that I'm looking at is Keenan Allen did have 5 catches for 95 yards. He did finish the game healthy, so he's probably going to step into that number 1 wide receiver role, especially with Mike Williams dealing with an ankle injury now. But Josh Palmer is who stole the show and stole the day, because he had 8 catches for 106 yards and 2 touchdowns. His second game with exactly 10 targets, 8 catches, 106 yards in the last 3 weeks. And guess who he torched a couple of weeks ago that I have a good familiarity with? My Atlanta Falcons. Came in and was a number 1 wide receiver coming into the game, and he made us look pitiful on defense. He comes in as a must-add, and why somebody that you need to ride this way. Josh Palmer. Coming up next. Did not forget about you. Did not forget about you, my friend. No. Did not forget about you. I'm going to start it off with this. This next guy, he didn't play on Sunday, but he definitely had the world talking for a couple of days after Thursday night game. Mr. Treylon Burks. Did you know that Treylon Burks had a target share of 35% in 3 of his 6 career games so far? He has a target percent of over 35% in 3 of his 6. To me, this screams wide receiver 1. Even in a run-heavy system and scheme, we knew that he was coming into a run-heavy system. We know that the Tennessee Titans' strength is stirred by Derrick Henry. This is something that we know. We're familiar with. We've seen this movie a bunch of times. But the movie that we didn't expect to see is Treylon Burks torching Jair Alexander. Treylon Burks being in a situation where Rasul Douglas was trying to guard him and it just didn't work out. where Treylon Burks is getting a 35% target share over in 3 of his 6 career games that he's played so far. The fact that we're in week 12 and he's only played 6 games is another story that I'm not going to spend too much time on. But the young man is healthy. They haven't had a wide receiver that was truly been productive all season long. In fact, last week with Nick Westbrook's Akine's 2-touchdown performance where he had over 100 yards, that was the first time a Titans wide receiver went over 100 yards this season in a game. Yes, Bobby Trees is still there. Yes, Kyle Phillips is still there. Yes, we understand what they have in Derrick Henry and Ryan Tannehill, but he is at the top of my list for waiver wire prospects that you need to be targeting. Mr. Treylon Burks after the performance he had against Green Bay, and then the telltale sign was at the end of the game when they had a chance to really ice it. And they didn't ice it by running the ball out; they iced it by throwing a bomb over Jair Alexander's head, and the young man came through. In fact, to see them throwing the ball this deep, taking deep shots with Tannehill as a quarterback is actually encouraging. Treylon Burks coming in at somebody you need to ride this way. Coming up next, the question has always remained, and we always need to talk about and get to, is this. Is Andy Dalton do enough to be the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints moving forward? And my answer for the most of the season has been no. How you say no in French? No. How you say no in Spanish? No. How you say no in Yoruba? No. What about Guapanese? No. Whatever way you say it, no. But yesterday, Mr. Andy Dalton had himself a great day. And that's why I changed my tune for a week. And I said that Andy Dalton deserved to be the quarterback that you need to explore for moving forward as the Saints starter for this season. However, Andy Dalton looks like he has a safety and security blanket on his hands with Mr. Juwan Johnson coming into the fold, because Mr. Juwan Johnson, it's not like he just popped off on the scene. Nah, while all this Taysom Hill noise was going on around the country and everybody was falling in love with the quarterback / tight end / wide receiver / offensive lineman / defensive back / kick returner / punt returner / gunner / whatever you want to call him, Juwan Johnson was the one that was really shining right in front of our face. Did you know that Juwan Johnson currently on the season has 5 straight games with a touchdown? He is clearly an option that Andy Dalton loves to go to. He is clearly consistent throughout this season. To me, he is as smash as you can get from the tight end position with all the volatility. We now have to talk about an injury to Kyle Pitts. We now have other tight ends that's not there anymore. Zach Ertz, for example. Also, Dallas Goedert is hurt. George Kittle plays tonight, and Travis Kelce is Travis Kelce, a future Hall of Famer. But a guy that is coming around not only for me, but that should be coming around for you is Mr. Juwan Johnson. Week 4, 4 targets, 3 receptions, 33 yards, receiving touchdown. Nope, he didn't get one. But ever since that point, he's been really turning it on, really coming along. And not only is he a safety blanket for Mr. Andy Dalton, but anytime that you can put together 5 straight weeks of a touchdown as a tight end, that just means that your floor is only increasing and increasing and increasing. It was great to see him what he did against the Los Angeles Rams, but there's a reason why you're watching his highlights against other teams, because I'm showing you that this has nothing to do with just 1 week with him going off against the Rams. This man's been doing this all season long, bro. All season long. Juwan Johnson, you need to ride this wave. Coming up next, ride this wave. Somebody that I've been waiting to talk about for a long time now. Long time, my friend. Long time. There's another week that's went by, but I don't need another week to go by with this guy not being mentioned in the category of just potential sleepers and potential players that's going to come in and do justice during fantasy football playoffs. Rachaad White entered into a situation his last week in Munich, Germany, and he had himself a delightful performance. Delightful. Leonard Fournette ended up leaving the game with an injury that only opened up opportunities for Rachaad White to get busy. He had himself a career day. A career day. And not only that, but he seems to be gaining the trust of Tabos, Leftwich, and Brady. That's a perfect trio that you need to be getting love from. He comes in fresh off this performance against Seattle, where he absolutely torched them. Did you know that the Tampa Bay Bucks ran the ball 40 plus times in this game versus Seattle over there in Germany? They started to figure out their identity. But this is also the first time that the Bucks have ran the ball that much in the Tom Brady era since he's been in Tampa Bay. Or you can call it Tampa Bay. This is showing me what my eyes have been waiting to see. What I've been knew that Rashad White was a dog coming out of the draft. Over the offseason, we saw little sprinkles of it and everything, but it just wasn't his time yet. We enter into late in the season, and he's being effective. These rookie running backs are coming along, and they're coming along strong. And he is one of the guys that is going to see tremendous workload moving forward, even with Leonard Fournette, if he does come back or not. I stand by that because of how he was utilized in this game. You don't just have performances like that and it just go off to the wayside, off to the back burner. I think he is something. Look at that man stiff arm a DB like he a little kid. I'll wait while you sit there and ponder about the possibilities of Rashad White being on your fantasy team. Because if he's still on your waiver wire, you need to ride this wave. Coming up next, this next guy I talking to you about. Look, I already know. I know. I've been talking about him earlier this season, but on Guru and Goat yesterday, my guy, my bro, Never KT, he said, I'm not the only go to Moon for fantasy. Who's who I trust the most. But I'm telling you, James Cook is going to have a breakout week in the next coming weeks. Mark my words. And I sat there and I got chills that ran down my spine. And I said to myself, that's how you do it. That's how you be out in front of the way. I'm going to echo his sentiments. He tied Devin Singletary with rushing yards yesterday with over 80. I think it was 86 to be exact. His roles continue to grow in the offense. When you look at how Nyheim Hines was used yesterday, I think he only had 2 touches. Like, I'm wondering why they made this trade, first and foremost. Secondly, I'm wondering how much is the role going to expand now that their flaws have been put out for the NFL world to see that, hey, Buffalo, you struggle running the ball. Just run the ball. Yesterday, they got the memo taking on the Cleveland Browns run defense that I said and was quoted on saying on Guru and Goat that they need Aiyana fix my life. This is not a joke. I was being dead serious. They need intervention. If the Buffalo Bills ain't been able to run the rock all year outside of Josh Allen and the Cleveland Browns just gave up 86 yards to Devin Singletary and James Cook. Let that sink in. We saw what my Falcons did to the Browns. We saw Austin Eckler did to the Browns recently. Like, do I have to keep going down the list? I think you get my point. But to add and hammer it down and hammer it home, James Cook, it's only a matter of time. If you drafted him in fantasy this offseason in Dynasty and you took that chance to do so, this is the times you get in where you're starting to play him. If you're in redraft and he happens to be on your waiver wire, pick him up. I don't really care who you have to sacrifice. As long as it's not a big name or a player that's giving you production. Hey, if you have a running back that's by the names of like Chase Edmonds, Raheem Mostert, even Devin Singletary, I would consider picking up James Cook over there, Devin Singletary moving forward, at least for the rest of the season. If we get into fantasy football playoffs, I'm just giving you examples. Would I take him over Jeff Wilson? Nah. I would probably take Jeff Wilson barely. At the end of the day, like, I know what I know with James Cook. It's only about opportunity. If you get that trust from your coaching staff, trust from your quarterback, and trust that you not only can do your thing as a runner and as a receiver and as a blocker, you're only going to be on the field more. It's only a matter of time. So we echo the sentiments and say that get yourself prepared now for the James Cook breakout week. It's supposed to be coming down the line, my friend. Coming down the line. James Cook, somebody you need to ride this way. Coming up next. I didn't forget about you, my friend. Oh, heavens. Oh, heavens. Yesterday, if you didn't know, George Pickens took the field, a.k.a. NFL Youngboy. NFL Youngboy took the field, ladies and gents. And my boy was active, let's say the least. He actually got injected in the game for hitting Tyler Boyd while he was down on an onside kick. Really didn't matter much at the end, in the tail end of things, but he was active. Kenny Pickett went his way multiple times. I'm sitting there looking at things, and I'm like, yo, like, this dude really, really could be a problem for this team. Now, it's crazy to see how Deontay Johnson's usage is like kind of fell. You see how it's still hard for them to consistently air it out, and they're not like one of the most high-powered offenses in the league. But over the last couple of weeks, they've been playing better. I will say that for sure. Now, when it comes to the Kenny Pickett, George Pickens combination, George Pickens had 6 targets, 4 receptions, 83 yards, and a touchdown. He left some meat on the bone. He left some money at the table, as Jalen Hurts would say. He left some money at the table. I mean, when you factor in Pat Freiermuth had 12 targets, 8 receptions, 79 yards. I mean, he had the only offensive receiving touchdown for the Pittsburgh Steelers. For context, Deontay Johnson had 5 targets, 4 receptions, 21 yards. My bad. I just shed a thug tear just thinking about that. Oh, gosh. That's sad, bro. But we saw this coming. As soon as Kenny Pickett was inserted into the conversation, we got to see Kenny Pickett get a chance to pick on Eli Apple with George Pickens lining up across the formation from him. The play that he caught the touchdown, it was schemed up by the offensive coordinator. He showed off his speed. He beat the defender. Like, he's going to give you highlight-worthy plays, but he's clearly the best deep down-the-field threat. It's not even close. So when I look at this and I see Deontay Johnson as an afterthought, it only makes me want to scream and pound the table. George Pickens, somebody who needs to ride this wave. Coming up next. Didn't forget about him. They've been trying to tell me about this kid all year long, and I've been saying, like, nah, bro, it's not time yet. It's not time yet. I gotta wait on Andy Reid. I'll wait on Andy. I see how Andy Reid, shakes it out. Is he even gonna give him a look? Can we even take this whole thing seriously? I think it's time to start taking it seriously. Not because I think that the Kansas City Chiefs need to run the ball in order to win. They clearly show us last night and all season long that they don't need to run the ball to win. But when they do run the ball, it makes their offense that much harder to stop. It's time for us to talk about the guy that you need to ride this wave on. And it's a surprise because you know where I stood earlier in the season. But Mr. Isaiah Pacheco, he posts his first, actually, let me get this right. He posts the first 100-yard rushing game from a Chiefs running back all season long. This is in 2022. Now, I personally didn't really panic when they named him the starter a couple of weeks ago. I said, they can name anybody the starter, but the way they split their carries, the way they have Jerick McKinnon playing, he's still out-snapping Pacheco because he's just a better blocker. We can debate who's the better running back as a whole, but like part of being a running back means that you have to do pass protection. I've seen multiple instances where Jerick McKinnon is a valuable asset from a pass protecting standpoint for the Chiefs. But this was last month. But he just continues to explode and explode and explode. And he had an 82-yard effort against the Jaguars. Then he posted the Chiefs' first 100-yard game as a rusher this season. And then you had CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, leave the game with an ankle injury. And I started scratching my head and I said to myself, were you wrong about Isaiah Pacheco? I look you dead into camera. Yes, I was wrong. At least this year, I was wrong. I thought Andy Reid wasn't going to give him playing time. I thought that based on what their current situation was, with them having Ronald Jones at the time, CEH, Sharif McKinnon, like, come on, bro. They could probably pick up Shady in the offseason and come in. When I saw this, I'm like looking at it, I'm like, bro, like, how's he going to be able to see the field for real? And you talk about vision and the concerns with him running and vision. I feel like all of those things can be taught and all those things can be worked on. But can you just debate that he's a strong physical runner that looks better than the rest of them that's on the roster? Yes, for sure. Now, if Clyde Edwards-Helaire misses any type of time, then I see this working in Pacheco's favor. Even if Clyde Edwards-Helaire didn't miss time, I see this still working out in Pacheco's favor. Why? Because McKinnon seems to lead the backfield in snaps most of the season. We've seen this, but I'm not going to be analyzing this solely off of, playing time, because you're going to miss the point. I feel like I'm going to miss the point. Now, I think McKinnon is the go-to back when it comes to passing situations, but when they're in a situation where it's run, he seems to be carving out a role, and he can be getting about 15 carries per game in the league, one of the league's best offenses as a whole. Sign me up. Isaiah Pacheco, another player that you need to be riding this wave on as we get into the fantasy football playoffs, getting closer and closer. Do you have any more? The last one? Another one bites the dust? Nah, not yet. All right, cool. That is Ride This Wave, brought to you by Fantasy Vibes. Got you covered. Welcome to the show. It's your boy MoonVibes, and I am joined by myself, me, and I. As I give you this breakdown of NFL Week 11, and we talk to you about some of the players that you need to ride this wave on. Show's been going great so far. We already talked about real talk and Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard, how it's not Ezekiel Elliott or a Tony Pollard. It's Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. That helps for the best situation for the Cowboys offense. We just talked about Ride This Wave. Now you know what time it is. It's time where I go and scout the lands of Twitter and get into the bag. How deep in the bag, Mo? Well, we're going to go elbow deep in the bag, Mo, and talk with a segment that I would like to call. I've been waiting to do, by the way. We got Mo's Mailbag, early week edition. And I am going to be going to the fantasy football community and searching through their questions. Are you ready? I'm ready too. Let's get it started. Question 1. Up by 25. PPR. My opponent has CMC, James Conner, and Debo. I have Kittle and my flex left. Should I play D-Hop or Rondell Moore for my flex? Play D-Hop, but understand that you don't have a chance tonight. Know that. You don't have a chance. Christian McCaffrey's projection is like 20 points by himself. That man has CMC, James Conner, who looks like he's healthy. Debo looks like he's going to be playing. You only have George Kittle, and you have a flex. So at this point, you should be playing D-Hop. I'm playing D-Hop over Rondell Moore in this situation. Collar doesn't look like he's playing tonight in Mexico City. And I know that D-Hop has a quote-unquote hamstring injury, but I'm going to still look his way. And even still, I don't really trust his matchup for Arizona as a whole, given how great the San Francisco 49ers defense has been over the course of this year. I can just name on a bunch of different stats that they're really good at. They're like in pretty much every statistical category that you can think of for defense, they're pretty much either top 10 in that range. So, with Collar on Warzone duty and not playing, you're going to have to deal with Colt McCoy. And their offense kind of looked good last week. I'm not going to lie. But I would be playing D Hop. That's to answer your question. Ishan, B Money. Another one. I'm currently up 12 points and my opponent has Kyler Murray. So I dropped Rondell to pick up Colt McCoy replacement for Kyler to sabotage them and take a 0 at quarterback to ensure my win. Currently 9-1 with my opponent 7-3. That's actually pretty smart. But is there anybody on your team that you could drop other than Rondell? Yeah. He said he also has Brandon Ayuk. They have an open slot in their bench, so they won't need to drop anyone if they decide to pick him up. Yeah, I would say do that. Absolutely. Why not be the saboteur? Coming up next, Ayuk trade, trade alert. Ayuk for Jeff Wilson. Offer it or offer more. You're going to have to offer more at this point. Not that I just think Jeff Wilson entering into the new situation with Miami has been flourishing. And the way that this man has been running through the holes that the offensive line for Miami has been creating for him, that's all he did to the Browns. I'm not saying that every week is going to be like the Browns, but Jeff Wilson looks like he's their lead back. And it's crazy how he just leapfrogged Raheem Mostert in that situation. But that's the guy I'm going with. I think he got the most impact for you from a fantasy football playoff standpoint. And then also just if you can't put a price tag on a running back that could end up being running back one, finishing running back one through on a given any week basis. Like, that's why I'll take Jeff Wilson in that side. And Brandon Ayuk is kind of disappointing me this season. Outside of that Atlanta game, it's like, where else can I get that production from? Down by 4, PPR. Opponent has gold left. Robbie, I'm guessing. Need to win to stay in the playoff hunt. Who do I start? DeAndre Hopkins hamstring. James Conner, 49ers run D. I would choose DeAndre Hopkins hamstring and fade James Conner against 49ers run D, because 49ers has just been really lethal against the run all season long. I know they've had their moments. Like, I can go all the way back to when they played San Francisco to begin the year and everything. But even still, Lil Herbert still found the end zone. Like, we can go down the list of games that they played. But I would still be more intimidated by James Conner going into the 49ers run defense than Hopkins with the hamstring. So give me Hopkins, even with the hamstring. Any tips to get Henry? Kamara and Higgins for Henry. Also have Patterson, Montgomery, Singletary, Devontae, Ayuk, Jared Wilson. His team is in the comments. Fair trade. Kamara and Higgins for Henry. I feel like you can get by with that. I mean, me personally, I wouldn't be trying to give up Kamara or T. Higgins for Derrick Henry right now, because I have Alvin Kamara and I already have Patterson, Montgomery, and Singletary. Unless you can go to the waiver wire, pick up Isaiah Pacheco or pick up James Cook, then maybe you can flip it and flex it to still get that same production and be still relevant in the fantasy football playoffs. But I know it's easy to look at Devontae and what he did yesterday against the Broncos. What is the Broncos? I think it was the Broncos. Yeah, the Broncos. And just get totally excited about it for your wide receiver position. But I love having the stack of T. Higgins and Devontae. So I would lean towards keeping your players and don't give that up. Another one. Should I offer Hollywood coming off an injury for David Montgomery? You're not about to be getting David Montgomery at that price, my boy. Trade Swift for Pollard. If you can, go for it. Go do it. Why not? You're going to probably have to add some tax on there, but you probably can get him. Where do we think Melvin Gordon ends up? I'll talk to you about that a little bit later in news and notes segment. The top has to win, right? I'm going to skip that one. Next question. We have a next question? Oh, rest of the season PPR, by the way. Chase coming back in a week or two. You got T. Higgins or Jeff Wilson. That, my friend, is interesting. But the way Joe Burrow is slinging the rock, I am going to lean towards T. Higgins over Jeff Wilson. I think T. Higgins was in a situation where just last week, like Tyler Boyd basically disappeared yesterday. I mean, he had technically 7 targets, but like a lot of them were bat downs at the line of scrimmage and everything. And I know that was a huge issue for them yesterday when they were playing against the Steelers. Now, the whole getting balls tipped at the line of scrimmage thing. But for Burrow, he still had a really good day. Like, Burrow, what was Burrow's stat line? My boy, no way. No. 24 at 39, 355, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's lit. I'm taking that and I'm taking the production that's coming with that. But you're looking at T. Higgins just by himself. He had 9 catches for 148 yards and 13 targets. Nobody on the team outside of him had more than 5. I guess you can count Tyler Boyd for having 7, but they don't really count with the whole getting back down to the line of scrimmage thing. So give me T. Higgins, bro. He played awesome yesterday. He's a physical wide receiver that's gonna make all types of crazy catches. And yeah, I would trust T. Higgins over Wilson. Need a replacement tight end for Kyle Pitts. Austin Hooper, Conklin, or Logan Thomas. I am gonna go with Logan Thomas. But actually, if you've been watching Fantasy Vibes, you don't really need a replacement tight end. You already know the tight end to get. Go get Juwan Johnson. We don't even have to have this debate. Logan Thomas, he's the option that I'm going with out of the 3 that we mentioned between Austin Hooper, who else? Tyler Conklin, whose production's kind of just falling off, and Logan Thomas. Give me Logan Thomas out of the bunch, but Juwan Johnson overall. Coming up next, do we have any more? Full PPR. Let's see. Should I bench Amon-Ra versus Bills in favor of Olave versus 49ers? No. You saw what Amari Cooper just did to the Bills defense? It was like Amari Cooper was playing at home yesterday. Amari Cooper had 2 touchdowns. It's crazy. I'm going to start Amon-Ra. In fact, if you can play both of them, play both of them. Because Chris Olave cooked Jalen Ramsey too yesterday. But that's all given because Andy Dalton was playing and playing better. So, yeah, I'm going to say both to that question. Is there any more that we need? Let me see. Let me look to see the list. I said that one, got that one. Oh, we just had one coming. Should I trade Dameon Pierce for Jamal Williams? Yes. If this is Dynasty, no. If this is redraft, yes. Jamal Williams upside. I'll talk about him in a little bit, but that upside is just there every week. Every week. If you're in the audience and you're watching, if you have a question, let me know. Drop them down below. It's time for Moon's mailbag. That's all from the Twitter side. Would you consider dropping Deontay Johnson? He's good, but I feel like as long as Pickens is on the field, he's number 1. Yeah, I would consider dropping Deontay. But it's crazy to be even saying that. But I didn't think that I was going to imagine a world where I was going to have to probably drop Kyle Pitts in redraft. But Deontay is just not. We understand how talented he is, but he's just not getting the opportunity. And it's clear that George Pickens is the deep threat in his offense. It's clear that Kenny Pickett will go to George Pickens. And when you talk about that, like, it's to your point. You're right. But the thing that nobody is talking about after last week, Najee Harris had 20 carries, 90 yards, and 2 touchdowns yesterday. 6 receptions, 6 targets, 4 receptions, 26 yards. Then my guy, Najee, he had a bulk of the carry. And then Jalen Warren ended up leaving the game. So with their offense figuring out the run more, and Najee getting back into his flow with what I know Najee can be, when we know Najee can be, like, I think this only helps their offense get better. I think that George Pickens is still the deep threat, though, so it's going to probably cap Deontay's upside. So I would strongly consider it, but I would have to have, like, elite options better than Deontay in order to make that move, because you never know what can happen from, like, an injury standpoint. And I don't want to be that guy. But I I trust my waiver wire picking up skills, and I feel like y'all should trust y'all waiver wire picking up skills more than y'all give yourselves credit for. And ability, especially watching fantasy vibes, to be plugged in with all the players that you need to be popping up on. So I would take the risk of dropping Deontay for Treylon Burks. I would take the risk of probably Josh Palmer would probably make my head hurt a little bit more, but like the upside is there clearly. Like sometimes we get attached to names, but we need to really be attached to the output. I think Deontay is one of the ones that we said his name, but if you look at his output versus his name, it hasn't been there this season. And it's for a number of reasons. It's not just one sole reason. So yeah, that's the answer to your question. But yeah, that is Moon's mailbag, brought to you by me being elbow deep in my duffel. No, I'm just playing. We got that brought to you by Rowan's Productions. Welcome to Fantasy Vibes. I'm your boy Moon, and here perspective matters. Where you sit determines what you see, and what you see determines your outlook on the situation. I can take any stat and convince you for a player or why a player shouldn't be there. If I told you at the beginning of the season that hey, Geno Smith will be a top 10 quarterback in fantasy right now, like, man, Moon, chill out, bro. You smoking the good stuff. If you really would have thought I was on some edibles or on some mushrooms or whatever, if I told you that Marcus Mariota would be a top 12 quarterback right now as you speak, or even that Jamal Williams would be a top 10 running back as we speak too. So I just want y'all to know that anything can happen in fantasy. Good, bad, ugly, and everything in between. But we all have to look at it and view it in the right context, because where you sit determines what you see. Where you sit, if you didn't watch the full game or you didn't see like the intricate details of the game, you would think that, well, dang, that Jets and Patriots game wasn't anything going on. Wasn't anything going on in that game. And I would sit there and tell you there was a lot going on in that game. It just was boring, but it was a lot. Well, we know all Patriots games going to be like that. You know, they're going to win with defensive special teams. But it tells you, it goes back to the point. You have to, where you sit determines what you see. Yeah, Marcus Mariota is top 12 right now as we speak. So, this is Fantasy Vibes, brought to you by R1P. This episode has been jam-packed, and we still have some stuff to get to. But before we do, let's take a look at, I'm actually going to flip a segment around real quick. Yeah, I'm going to flip a segment around. Did you know that Russell Wilson is the only quarterback in the NFL so far this season that has not thrown a touchdown pass against the Las Vegas Raiders? Crazy. Like, insanely crazy to think about that. Let's talk to you about some guru nuggets, because I'm probably going to have to make this a segment in the show. I'm probably going to have to get like a theme song or a little jingle. Another guru nugget. Like I need one of them like 5-second jingles, you know? It's perfect for holiday season, you know? Maybe have McDonald's sponsor me for the nuggets part. What I said about Russell Wilson is facts. Let's talk to you about some more stats and some research that I did in this segment that I like to call Another Guru Nugget. Did you know that Bills running back James Cook, who was just talking about earlier in the Ride This Way segment, he finished with plus 32 rushing yards over expected on Sunday, and that was the highest for a Bills player who isn't a quarterback named Josh Allen this season. Ride the wave on James Cook. Please and thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Did you know that the Ravens defense, they have at least one takeaway in 12 straight games, making the longest active streak in the NFL? They are one of the sleeper teams that's out there for defenses to stream. I'm just mentioning it to let you know. Also, for the Ravens, Lamar Jackson finished outside of the top 10 quarterbacks yet again. That's my guy. But he finished outside of the top 12 quarterbacks again this week versus the Panthers. The Panthers, their defense needs more credit. I talked to you about Juwan Johnson, but everybody is talking about Chris Olave and everything, but like Juwan Johnson needs a little bit more love, man. Like a lot more love. I talked to you a little bit about the 5-game touchdown streak, but like I really do feel like that is a testament and just it's full belief in his development as a tight end, his importance to the offense, the fact that Andy Dalton believes that he gonna be there where I need him to be there, especially since my job is on the line too. And it shows me that he's probably going to be in the Saints' plans moving forward. So, like, when I just gave you 4 different things and 4 different reasons, the guru nugget is this. Andy Dalton had his best game this season to me. He had 11 of 13 completed passes for 131 yards and 3 touchdowns against the Rams on attempts down the seams. Where was he going to attack Juwan Johnson? Down the seams. Where did Chris Olave get his touchdown against Jalen Ramsey? From the slot, but he was attacking where? Down the seams. This is how you beat the Los Angeles Rams. And speaking of that, the Rams are just 2 more losses from securing a losing season after winning the Super Bowl this past year. The last team to finish with the losing record in the following season was the 03 Buccaneers. The 03 Buccaneers. You heard that right. Another guru nugget. Curtis Samuel on the Washington Commanders is now one of 4 wide receivers in the Super Bowl era with 600 plus rushing yards, 6 plus rushing touchdowns, 2,500 plus receiving yards, and 15 plus receiving touchdowns in a career. The only other players that can mention their name in that same conversations are Jerry Rice, Tyreek Hill, and Eric Metcalf. The more you know. I'm keeping them coming. I'm just letting them digest for you. Letting you digest. It's a lot. But Jamal Williams. We'll talk about him in a second, but he's the first player to score multiple rushing touchdowns in at least 5 of his team's first 10 games since Hall of Famer LaDainian Tomlinson did so in 2006. And that was the season that he set the single season touchdown record with 31. My guy, Jamal Williams, has been in the end zone quite a bit this year. I'm not saying he don't catch LT, but he's been in the end zone quite a bit. Philly, we talked about Philly and how they barely escaped and how they just barely survived against the Colts. But did you know that Stephon Gilmore lined up across A.J. Brown on 19 of A.J. Brown's 25 routes against the Colts? That's 76% of the time. And on the day, A.J. Brown caught 2 of 4 targets for 35 yards versus Stephon Gilmore. That's the crazy thing. But the part of it that I want you to really dive deeper into, Moon, and why I say that it all is not lost. Even though A.J. Brown had himself that day in that performance against Gilly Lock, did you know that Devontae Smith had a season-high 39% target share this week? Now I know they didn't have Dallas Goedert and some other options and everything, but like he seems to be the clear winner in this whole Dallas Goedert being injured thing. And he had a 6-catch, 78-yard performance, but that's not going to stand out to people. But it's not until I mentioned the fact that he had a almost 40% target share. And it's like Jalen Hurts always says in the post-game locker room. We left some money on the table. And they definitely did. That's what you need to know. And last Gruel Nugget. Justin Fields recorded his 5th straight game with at least 1 passing touchdown and 1 rushing touchdown, tying Kyler Murray for the longest streak since 1950. The more you know, the more you get a chance to add to your process, and the more you get a chance to look at things from a different light, from different perspectives. This is Fantasy Vibes. Coming up next in the show, it's time for the recap of the NFL. I'm not going to go through every single game and all that type of stuff, but I'm going to hit on some of the key things that stood out to me. So with that being said, welcome to Fantasy Vibes. Thing number 1 that needs to be talked about, Najee Harris. I told you before, but 20 carries for 90 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 receptions, 6 targets, 26 yards. My guy is back. I told you that he's going to be battling this whole Liz Frank injury. It's going to be Najee versus the Liz Frank. And a lot of people were being so disrespectful and don't think that I did not forget about those receipts that I have saved and stored ready. Talking about Jalen Warren needs to be the starting running back moving forward. Stop that nonsense, please. Jalen Warren, I'm praying for your health, but you are not Najee Harris. And you know that. You know that. He know that. Najee is coming along, and I love to see it. He's somebody I'm going to be talking about in this situation. Like, anytime that you can have Najee do work in a cold, grinded out division game where he hurdled a defender, when there's people that was talking about how he didn't have explosiveness. What is explosiveness to you, Moon? Oh, that's explosiveness to me. Najee, he's who we're going to be talking about. Coming up next, Jamal Williams. I didn't think he was going to be a top 10 fantasy option at running back this year on the season, but currently he's running back number 10 in fantasy. And it makes you still have your questions about like whether or not you want to start DeAndre Swift or Jamal Williams. But let me just answer it for you. Anytime you're faced with that dilemma, just look at what the Lions have showed you all throughout the season and believe what your eyes have shown you. The Lions have showed you repeatedly that when we get on the goal line, when it comes to getting the tough yardage, short yard situations, when it comes to most situations, we will prefer Jamal Williams over DeAndre Swift because he is nursing injuries and he's not 100%. I've been sitting here like Brian Windhorst, like, why would they do that? Why would they do that? Why would they manage DeAndre Swift like they actually have a chance to make the playoffs? Then I thought about it. You beat the Bears. You beat the Packers. You beat the Giants, division contending Giants. Maybe they do have a chance to make the playoffs. Williams, though, RB1 moving forward. Don't even think about it. Now, I know some people might look at his usage and everything and be like that, but like, if I could bank on any player this season to get in the touchdown on a week-to-week basis, the answer unemphatically is either Travis Kelce, Jamal Williams. Oh, yeah, Jamal Williams. We talk about matchups in the fantasy football playoffs. Jamal Williams faces the Carolina Panthers in Week 16. The same Carolina Panthers that gave up 5 total touchdowns to Joe Mixon. 4 of them were on the ground, 1 of them was rushing. Then they play Chicago Bears this past. And we know what the Chicago Bears rushing defense is. They play them in Week 17. These are fantasy football playoff matchups for you. And why you need a running back 1 on your team. Jamal Williams, somebody got to talk about, who made his statement yesterday. Coming up next, can't forget about him. And not forget about him because he was a problem last night. My guy, Mr. Kelce, he needs to be in the Hall of Fame. I don't even know why people are like, it's not a debate anymore. It's not. As long as Mahomes is his quarterback, he's going to continually put up stats. But I'm here to tell you this. Travis Kelce is single-handedly one of the most, not only, he swings so many matchups If you have Travis Kelce this year, he has swung so many matchups in your favor where you might have looked like you were about to lose, and then he pops off with 3, 4 touchdowns, and then now you are winning again. This is Travis Kelce in a nutshell when it comes to fantasy. Like at this point, it's just purely scary. Not only is he one of the best tight ends of all time, not only is he enjoying probably the best fantasy football season of his career in year 33 of him being on this earth, he already matched his career high with touchdowns with 11. He already has that. And it's only November. We still got weeks to go. And he already has his career high touchdowns. Having Travis Kelce on your team is like having a secret Yu-Gi-Oh card that nobody can find. Blue Eyes White Dragon. That's what it feels like. Being in a battle and knowing that you got Blue Eyes White Dragon in your pocket. That's what it feels like. Like, he is a cheat code. And this is the reason why he's unemphatically the number one tight end ruled off the board. You might have some question marks about every other tight end that's underneath him, but you don't have question marks about that guy. Travis Kelce, difference maker, and he showed it last night in a beautiful game, by the way. Especially how the early slate was and how dominant with the Cowboys winning. It was just good football to watch. So shout out to Travis Kelce. Also, we gotta talk about it. Justin Fields. Now he's coming up he's gonna be in multiple segments. So not only this one, but another one coming up soon. But he continues to showcase why he's like that. Like, not only was this his homecoming game coming back to Atlanta and everything, but he started off hot. Like, he hit Darnell Mooney on just a dime in the back of the end zone. And I'm like, okay, it's about to get started for him early. But the Falcons, what I didn't expect as a Falcons fan was us to create a 40% pressure percentage on Justin Fields on his dropbacks. That was the most sacks that my Falcons got on any quarterback all season long. In fact, coming into the game, Atlanta only had a 22.2 quarterback pressure percentage rate in weeks 1 through 10. That was the 4th lowest rate in the entire NFL. And all of a sudden, you get a chance to play the most sacked quarterback in the NFL. They definitely surprised me. When it comes to the fantasy takeaways for this one, Justin Fields, he is dealing with a shoulder injury. He also, I think, is dealing with cramp. He was cramping as well. So these are things that you have to monitor. I'll talk a little bit about that later. But from a fantasy perspective, you want to invest in him, and you are kind of a little bit nervous right now, awaiting what the case is going to be. But from the Bears situation, Darnell Mooney, he saw a second lowest percent of offensive snaps in the past calendar year due to the rotation and how that played out this past week. Now, the good thing is that Darnell Mooney was primarily taken out on run plays. So he was still on the field when they were in passing situations and passing down. Now, the beauty is Chase Claypool. Chase Claypool seems to be emerging as the third wide receiver for this team. He was top 3 in routes run. And he was one of the 3 to see any targets. He didn't get any targets in the game. Now, I can understand why people would drop Chase Claypool. However, like, if Justin Fields can't play, then I'm on the train and just you might as well drop the whole offense because I don't know what they're going to be. But it was encouraging to see his offensive snaps, Chase Claypool, go up, especially since he's been still adjusting to this trade. Without Khalil Herbert, the Bears had Devin Montgomery be the starter like he was all season. He received more snaps than usual in this one, which was encouraging to see. Justin Fields, he finished behind him in carries and rushing yards. But surprisingly, Monty led the team in receiving yards, which is crazy. Treston Ebner, got to make him have an appearance. He started as a backup running back, but he didn't really do much. and he had 8 carries, 8 yards on 6 carries, and he didn't catch his only target that he had. Now I can see how people would buy low on Khalil Herbert, given the fact that the fantasy football playoffs have the Lions playing the Bears in Week 17, and Detroit has allowed the fifth most rushing yards and the third most rushing touchdowns to running backs this season. So that looks like it's going to be time to eat. But I mean, obviously, we would want Justin Fields playing in that game because that looks like the prime position for him. We just saw what the Lions and Bears did from a points perspective last week. So, look, that's what you need to know about from the Bears. From the Falcons side of things, we got to monitor this whole Kyle Pitts situation and his injury. I saw the play live when it happened, and it did not look good. It looked like he was catching the ball, didn't see it, and Eric Jackson came, and his knee hyperextended, his body weight and momentum fell forward. And then from that point, everybody said, like, this looks worse. He went on the sideline, Kyle Pitts did, and he was doing high knees, running around, trying to jump. He kept bending down. You could tell he was in visible pain. He didn't come back in the game. But reports are today that he is done. It's torn. I think it's a torn MCL. So it looks like he's done for the rest of the season, given the timeline and where we are in the season. But I'm going to look at the positive in the situation. Kyle Pitts' playing time was on the rise this past week. Their last week. That seemed to be the case in the first half before everything went to just hit the fan. But at that point, before his injury, he led the team in receptions. He led the team in receiving yards. And he didn't even really play in the second half. Now, everybody's like, oh, do we need to pick up Michael Pruitt? No. No. What about Anthony Firkser? No. No, my friend. Don't do it. But you need to monitor this injury because it's important. And Drake London did get a touchdown catch in this game, which was impressive. And so did Darnell Mooney, who had 4 receptions, 29 yards, and a touchdown. But we're going to need Drake London to see more targets. He only had 3 yesterday. And that was second on the team behind Kyle Pitts. Obviously, we want more from the passing game from the Falcons. I'm not about to get into the whole Marcus Mariota versus Desmond Ridder debate. But I will say that there's some takeaways from each side that it was good for fantasy, but it was still bad because there was injuries that just put a sour taste in our mouth and everything. So that's what you need to know from the Bears and Falcons game. Coming up next, I want to talk to you a little bit about this Monday night game coming up that we have a preview of. And it is a battle between the NFC West rivals, between the Arizona Cardinals, and we also have the San Francisco 49ers taking on Monday Night Football. Now, this game is in Mexico City, and I have my concerns all across the board because I understand the altitude situation is unlike anything we've seen before with Mexico City and playing in this game. I've heard stories and stuff about this, so I can expect. I'm tempering my expectations all across the board from fantasy performances from everybody because I think that it's going to be that difficult of an environment to play in. And by the time we might look at this first and second quarter and look at players be gassed, literally gassed. But from this game, Elijah Mitchell came back last week and did his thing, which was great to see. Now, the Christian McCaffrey owners and everybody were saying, like, hey, why not feed Christian McCaffrey the ball, bro? Why y'all bring him here? Hey, I've been saying that, and I've been right there with you. But at the same time, like, they clearly have showed you over the course of the season that Elijah Mitchell is still their guy right now and that he already has familiarity with the system. He already has scheme recognition. It's not like he's plug and play. So it was only right for him to get touches and carries. But who I want to see get carries today is Debo. Debo, as you see running right there, Debo is in a situation where his carries are kind of down this year. It's been an interesting year for Debo to say the least. But anytime you can get involved in offense and make it that much tougher on the Cardinals defense, it's where I have some optimism heading into this game. Now, from the Cardinals perspective, this is the same Cardinals team that made Cooper Kupp look like he was just another regular wide receiver. last time he played. Their rushing defense is pretty good. 4.5 per carry. Now I say pretty good because there's teams out there that's just bad. Like the Cleveland Browns, for example. They do a good job of flowing down the hill. They have fast linebackers. They know how to flow to the ball. So from the offensive standpoint, I'm not doing the whole Trey McBride experience right now yet. Like I'm not. If I have to start any wide receiver, I'm starting D Hop because just I know what I'm going to get. Even with the injury concern, it doesn't really bother me. They've had a longer week than everybody else since they do play in Mexico City on Monday night. Um, so that kind of pushed my concerns. That pushes my concerns away. But when I look at the rest of the storylines for this game, like I'm still starting George Kittle. I'm starting Christian McCaffrey if I have it. I would be interested in throwing Jimmy Garoppolo out there as a streamer. I saw somebody talk about picking up Colt McCoy and having him, but I honestly think that he's going to struggle against this 49ers defense, specifically the pass defense for the 49ers. So I would only do that unless I like really need to. But I don't think he's worth dropping a quarterback or to that. Like, if you're doing it to troll, then I get it. But if you're doing it because this is where you at and this is the only option, then I get it. But if you have better options, don't go with Colt McCoy. I will pass on the veteran quarterback. James Conner, if you have to start him, start him against the tough matchup against the Niners rushing defense. But temper your expectations in that situation. No more Eno Benjamin, so no more siphoning the carries away from him. D Hop, like I said before, I'm starting. Rondell, I still probably would start, but like I'm tempering my expectations all across the board for them. And my MVP of the game, I'm probably gonna say it's Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is probably my MVP of the game heading into this matchup. Um, and that is my takeaways for the week so far. We all know that Kyler Murray is not playing, so I don't think that was like really news. They're gonna have to figure out their offense outside of like Zach Ertz. They're gonna have to figure out like where the targets are gonna go between Hop and Nuke and Rondell, James Conner being back. Like they're gonna have to figure it out. But the matchup that we're gonna watch and pay closest attention to is DeAndre Hopkins versus Tre'Davious Ward. Tre'Davious Ward. I'm also gonna be looking at Hufanga as well, and this pass rush for the 49ers defense. So both of them are good defense to stream tonight. My favorite would probably be the Niners defense to stream, given the situation. So with that being said, this is Fantasy Vibes, and this is the Monday Night Football preview. I would be totally tripping if I didn't leave you with some more nuggets that you can take away before we get out of here. Ramondre Stevenson has seen at least 22% of the targets in 4 straight games. Damian Harris did come back this past week, and he did look fresh. He had some bounce in his step, broke off some long runs, but Ramondre Stevenson still dominated the snaps. And like Jalen said earlier, if it ain't a running back, don't trust a pass player. But even then, you can't trust him. Jacoby Myers can't throw the ball to himself. Ramondre Stevenson can't throw the ball to himself. But it's great to see that Ramondre is getting the passing game work. That's so important to help upside with fantasy. That's what you need to know. I also talked about the Commanders a little bit earlier. Terry McLaurin, did you know that his target percentage is twice as much when Taylor Heineke plays versus when Carson Wentz plays? When Carson Wentz plays, his target percentage is only 16.5%. When Taylor Heineke plays, Terry McLaurin's target share is at 32%. So makes me believe, is this a great thing moving forward for Terry McLaurin to have Taylor Heinicke as a starter than Carson Wentz? I feel like he knew that, and why it makes sense why he did get the deal done before the season started. Because the future looks brighter when I look at Taylor Heinicke as my quarterback moving forward than Carson Wentz. All right, so that's another stat. I got you. Also making an appearance is Kyron Williams. Now I know it's hard to get excited about any Rams running back, but Cam Akers did well given his sample size this past week. Um, against the Saints, Kyron Williams, he led the Rams running backs in snaps with 55% and route participation at 68%. And it's basically a situation where I totally fade all Rams running backs, including Darrell Henderson and the rest of the bunch. However, on a week-to-week basis, you're probably going to need one or the other. And you're only picking them based on matchup. So it's matchup dependent. We have to monitor this news about Matt Stafford. But from what I'm seeing, I want to think that Cam Akers is going to be the primary ball carrier. And I want to think that, based on what my eyes is telling me, that Darrell Henderson magically just getting removed is like a big deal. But then the scary part about it is, like, I really want to say to myself that maybe this Kyron Williams thing and what they've been saying could possibly be a big thing. But again, I just don't trust it. Why? Because it's the Rams backfield. And we don't trust that. All right. Let's get to the last segment before we get out of here. And that's Around the NFL. Brought to you by Real Ones Productions. And we're going to go rapid fire and get into it. Coming up first in Around the NFL, I'm going to go rapid fire, like I said. Matt Stafford, quarterback, Los Angeles Rams. Sean McVay said that the team is still evaluating Matt Stafford for a concussion. When asked about what the Rams are still waiting on, McVay said if he actually needs to be in the protocol because he has a concussion, and then the necessary information from our doctors that I would get after that. Stafford exited Sunday's game against the Saints to be evaluated for the concussion and did not return. However, the team has yet to confirm or deny whether or not Stafford actually suffered a concussion. It seems more Miami Dolphins-ish than I care to admit right now. They said that they wanted to make the smart decision with Stafford after the quarterback was just returning from a concussion that kept him sidelined in week 10. So this is possibly 2 concussions in a row in 2 weeks. Again, eerily similar to this whole Tua situation. John Wolford or Bryce Perkins. Those are the names that you need to be paying attention to. Coming up next, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back. Chiefs coach Andy Reid said that Clyde Edwards-Helaire suffered a high ankle sprain in Sunday's win over the Chargers. He exited in the first quarter of Sunday's contest and didn't return to the field. Now that we know the details of his injury, we're going to have to sit here and wait and see how long he's going to be out. But this is the reason why I say be on the Pacheco train now. He had already been sidelined with this injury before, prior to this injury. And he saw a 6% snap share in the team's Week 10 win over the Jaguars, which is a drastic drop, about 17%. Now, I already told you, it's Jerick McKinnon and Isaiah Pacheco. This only hurts CAH moving forward, especially when we get to fantasy football playoffs time. Zach Wilson. Jets coach Robert Saleh didn't commit to starting Zach Wilson in Week 12 against the Bears. Why? Because we've been saying it for the longest amount of time when it comes to Zach Wilson. They're just starting to come around to it. Wilson turned in one of the most atrocious performances you'll ever see in the modern NFL on Sunday. He had 9 pass completions, and his team had 10 punts. He had 1 less completion than his team had punts. The guy, head coach, Robert Salah came out and said that they played like dog S word, the expletive. I wish I had that SpongeBob little thing with like, ah. Yeah, they had that one. Joe Flacco, Mike White, still the backups and everything. Would I go with who? Flacco? I'm going with Flacco. That's what you need to know. Falcons placed D lineman Taquan Graham knee on injured reserve. Head coach Arthur Smith didn't offer anything specific about the injury other than noting that he'll be out for a few weeks. So he's going to have to miss. He's going to have to miss the next 4 games, and he wouldn't be eligible to return until week 17 of against the Cardinals. Taquan Graham is also the guy that left the fumble on the ground in against the Chargers. That's where his most infamous moment is. David Andrews, Patriots. Ian Rappaport reported that Patriots center David Andrews could return late in the season or for the playoffs. Mike Williams, Los Angeles Chargers, said that he aggravated his high ankle sprain, but is not considered significant. I say that this is fiction. And of course, they're going to say it's not as significant. But anytime you re-injure the injury that you just came back on, that doesn't bode well. So essentially, water is still wet. Staley did confirm the obvious by saying that the aggravated injury and added that the team will know more about his availability in the next coming days, like we all will. But this is not good signs for Mike Williams. Marquise Hollywood Brown. He was not activated by the Cardinals ahead of the Monday night matchup versus the 49ers, so he's not playing tonight. It was originally mentioned that they were possibly going to activate him ahead of the matchup versus the 49ers. After, so to me, this is not really that big of a surprise. DJ Shark was a limited participant in practice on Monday for the Lions. He was active for Sunday's Week 11 win versus the Giants, but he only had 1 target and he only ran 5 routes. Kyle Pitts, he was placed on injured reserve. He's expected to be out for an indefinite amount of time. He suffered a torn MCL and is likely to require surgery. He's on the injured reserve and he is required to miss at least 4 games, but there's a chance that, given our playoff situation and everything, that he could come back. But there's a chance. DeAndre Swift, he was listed as a full participant in Monday's practice, so that's a good sign. Anytime he can start the week off as a full participant is great. Chase Young is on the news. He's possibly going to come back. He got activated today from injured reserve, so that's a great thing. With Young's 21-day practice window closing, the Commanders had no choice but to activate him at the beginning of this week. Whether or not he plays in Week 12 against the Falcons is the next hurdle to clear for us, but they've been cautious with his rehab this entire time, and he suffered his ACL in Week 10 of last season. So if you look at the timeline, it's about to be Week 12. So that's like a year to the date. So yes. Justin Fields, Bears coach Matt Eberflus said Justin Fields is day-to-day with the shoulder injury. It should be added for context that he did have cramps. And it should also be added to context that Eberflus did not rule out the possibility of Justin Fields' injury being season ending. We don't know why, so I'm not sure. But like the deeper thing was that you could tell that he was in noticeable pain on Sunday after the loss, during the game. So them saying it's day-to-day makes me feel like that's cap. Like there's something deeper going on behind the scenes. We got to monitor the situation and pay close attention to it. Jamar Chase. Bengals coach Zach Taylor was non-committal on the Jamar Chase returning in Week 12. The good news is that Taylor said that the Bills would begin working Chase back into practice, adding it truly is a day-to-day situation with him. But he's been out since Week 7 with a hip injury. And if he's able to suit up, he'll be a obvious wide receiver in 1 play versus the Titans. Derek Stingley, Texas coach Lovie Smith said that the team is hoping to have Derek Stingley hamstring back sooner rather than later. Does that give me anything that I'm really hopeful for? Not really. The Bengals waive wide receiver Mike Thomas. Baker Mayfield, quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, spoke on Monday saying, Panthers coach declined to name a starting quarterback for the team's Week 12 matchup against the Broncos. So they don't know who they're going to be going with. Baker Mayfield, PJ Walker, Matt Corral. Of another news, Deshaun Jackson, wide receiver, Baltimore Ravens. Head coach John Harbaugh said that Deshaun Jackson is still working his way back from his hamstring injury. He suffered a pulled hamstring in week 9 debut and was able to make it back in week 11 following the team's bye week. So they're still monitoring, and we still got to pay attention to see if he's able to suit up for week 12. Chase Edmonds reports for the Broncos he's expected to miss multiple weeks with the high ankle sprain, which is horrible timing because Melvin Gordon just got released. So it looks like it's about to be the Latavius Murray show. Also, I just said it, but Melvin Gordon got waived today by the Broncos. It's been a crazy season to say the least for Melvin Gordon and the Broncos. He fumbled again and looked like they fumbled the bag, and they decided to part ways with Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon, he's rushed this season 90 times for 318 yards and a touchdown. Oh, 2 touchdowns, my bad. And he has 3.5 yards per carry, Melvin Gordon does. So let's just say this. This whole Melvin Gordon experience didn't work out. And I'm not about to sit here and mince my words. It didn't work out. Another news. What else do we have? Raheem Mostert did not practice on Monday. Jameson Williams designated to return from injury reserve this week. So it's coming. We know that Jameson suffered an ACL, torn ACL in the national championship with Alabama against Georgia, but he still got selected as a 12th overall pick in the recent draft. He just had his 21-day practice window open, so it's unlikely that he plays Thursday for the for the Lions. My apologies. But they still have games against the Jaguars, Vikings, Jets, Panthers, Bears, and Packers to close out the season. So that gives him very much some relevance in fantasy football and for the playoffs. So it's almost fantasy football playoffs time, but it's almost Jameson Williams time. In other news, Wan'Dale Robinson suffered a torn ACL on Sunday, which is heartbreaking news. He was already torching their defense, and it got confirmed by Brian DeBall on Monday that he had his right ACL tear, and he was having a career day too. He had 9 catches for 100 yards, and he had a sore hamstring coming into the day. He still played. He finishes the year with 23 receptions, 227 yards, and 1 touchdown in 6 games. That's Rondell. No more for you. And that is the latest news. Notes from around the NFL. Brought to you by Fantasy Vibes. We come to the end of another episode, and we want to give you, the listeners, our audience, our viewers, the love for not only watching this, but helping make Fantasy Vibes back and better. I know y'all feel it. It's been a while since we got a chance to do an episode, but y'all have been missed. Definitely feeling so much better than the last time I recorded in a number of different ways. Life has been evolving and changing, which is great. But more than anything, we want to still give you this content. Why? Because we want to be a trusted source in fantasy football content and information that we get over here. Now, I am not knowledgeable of every single thing, but if I don't know it, then I probably know somebody that knows it, or I know something that knows it, like Google, right? And also, I'm always willing to learn. So if you have any takes, bold takes from what I said, if you have any rebuttals to what I said, anything in the show, make sure you drop it in the comments for this post. If it's on YouTube, make sure you drop it on YouTube. And if you have any comments, make sure you put them as well on our reviews for the show. Speaking of reviews, we greatly appreciate you for checking out Real Ones Productions content. And none of this would be possible without Real Ones Productions sponsoring this show and every episode of Fantasy Vibes. But if you love this content, make sure you share it with somebody. Leave a review on Spotify, Anchor, whatever way you listen and watch this content. And we want to give a special shout out to you for taking your time out to experience and embrace the Fantasy Vibes. Now, we hope that we have made you better fantasy football players over the course of us doing this show, but there's still going to be some bad apples no matter what because they don't want to listen to nothing that Moon say. Moon vibes doesn't know anything, my friend. I'm like, okay. All right. It's all love, though. Appreciate y'all. I want to say this before I leave. It's not Ezekiel Elliott and or Tony Pollard. It's Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. Make sense? Right. That's the Cowboys' best chance for them to go to the promised land that they have been so desperately awaiting to arrive to for the longest amount of time. Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. 1-2 punch. Make it happen. Because there's a world that exists and we're living in it where both of them can be successful. We talked about a lot on this episode, including real talk on the topic that I just got done discussing. We had Ride This Wave, where we gave you players that you need to explore the wave on. They included George Pickens, Isaiah Pacheco, James Cook, Juwan Johnson, just to name a few. There's more. We getting you prepared before Waiver Wire Wednesday even comes so you can go scoop these players up now. Why? Because you want to be ahead of the wave. And speaking of that, that's why you need to ride this wave. And Mo's Mailbag give you questions answered from the community on what was on my mind and try to do my best answer. We had our week 11 recap. And of course, I'm not going to be able to talk about every game. If you want more in-game breakdowns from me, MoonVibes, make sure you tune in to Guru and Goat NFL postgame show. You can check out that on Spotify. And we got you with the latest news around the NFL. For this special edition of Fantasy Vibes on live on November the 21st, 2022, I send you off into your day. Say thank you for your time. We'll see you on the next episode. And hopefully, you're celebrating a dub tonight as we enter into week 12 of the NFL season. Who knew that we would get there so quickly? This is Fantasy Vibes, and I'm your boy Moon. And we'll see you on the next episode. Peace.